call this meeting to order.
Bring it, Randy.
Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service for February 16, 2021. I'm your current president, Ashley Wesley. Thank you for being here. Natalie, please show the flag graphic for 15 seconds of respectful silence. Please remain on mute and take this time to personally reflect. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Martha Wales, who will be offering our reflection.
Okay, this is a follow-up to the club's January emphasis on volunteering. Good and good for you was the headline in the December 2020 Rotary magazine, the built-in bonus that comes with helping others. The article went on, when we do good, it doesn't only benefit other people, it helps us too. Studies show that helping others boosts oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, neurotransmitters that make us feel satisfied. I volunteer at Community Kitchen for 2 hours each Monday noon, which has meant that once a week I spend 2 hours with real live people who are often multiple generations younger than I am. I'm paired with one person, socially distanced and masked, of course, and my partner and I talk, or not, through our masks. But this reflection isn't about the kitchen. It's about some of the people I've worked with who have expanded my life. There's Cheryl, who decided she shouldn't continue last year, but who looks forward to returning in March after she's fully vaccinated. She emailed me that she and her husband plan to celebrate their vaccinations by wearing only one mask each, rather than two. There was a young woman working off heating help who was training to become a doula, a home birth coach, and doing braiding. Nate, a fraternity guy who was working off community service hours, my guess is for participating in a gathering larger than allowed by the city, but who knows? I heard a lot about his buddies. Chris, in his 30s, had worked for breweries and making spirits, was let go for the moment and was volunteering to fill his time. I was hopeful he could arrange for me to get spent grain from the brewery for my compost, but no. Arif from the United Arab Emirates. His wife is here for a doctorate and he's the house husband for the family. He's valuable for the kitchen because they can call him at the last moment to fill in. Layla, a recent IU grad, home for Christmas from Dallas, where she's working for the Environmental Protection Agency. I've also worked with her dad, a retired math teacher from Bloomington South. There was a young woman from the Bloomington South swim team who trained last summer when all the pools were closed in the same Bloomington pond where Lily King, the IU Olympic champion, practiced. 4 of the team were volunteering that day after practice in the morning and another practice scheduled for the afternoon, right after our shift ended. That was during the December holiday break. And I've been following them. They did really well in the state meet last weekend. 2 people who grew up in foster homes. One was 20, working at Dick's Sporting Goods, and the other in her mid-40s. The latter was in the US military, married with 4 children at home, and she found time to volunteer. Kevin, who moved to Bloomington to get away from some friends who were bad influences. Showing how old I am, I guess, I hadn't realized that young people do not know the name Alfred Kinsey. Somehow I thought that was universal knowledge in Bloomington. And then there's June, the volunteer coordinator, who was concerned last fall about the toad outside her back door, who didn't dig down to hibernate as he should. She took him in, fed him crickets and mealworms. She showed us a photo and he's quite handsome. When I've recently asked about him, she said he had finally dug into the dirt in his container. She hopes he will reemerge in spring so she can put him out by her back door again. We will all reemerge at some point. Meantime, I add my voice to those who are saying, do something outside ourselves in whatever way we can that will make our lives better and that day come sooner. Whether or not my oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine have been boosted, I've had fun and gained a lot.
Thank you so much, Martha. What a wonderful reflection. And I need an update about that toad, by the way. I have to know. We have some guests today, but not as many as the last 2 weeks, so we can actually introduce them today. Becky Jessmer, would you like to introduce your guests?
Oh, sure. I wasn't expecting this, but yeah, absolutely. I currently work for Youth First, but in a lifetime prior to that, I worked for WFIU and WTIU, which is where I recognize a lot from. And I was able to reach out after Rotary shared that Tom was going to be today, and let Brad Kimmel, who is the new executive director, general manager, I'm not sure of his title, I apologize, Brad, who's new to WFIU and WTIU, I invited him to sit here and listen. And then John Bailey, who is the station manager for WFIU. I'm not sure if he is on, but I invited him as well.
Good.
Thanks so much.
Oh, thanks for having us, having me as well.
Welcome.
Hi, John. Good.
Jim Bright, are you with us?
Yes, I am. It's good to have with us today back Bob Hamill. Bob, it's always a treat to see you. And anybody else on here who I've invited as my guest?
Randy Wheeler, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Randy joining us from Evansville. It's always a treat to see Randy. And I know Bob Hamill and Randy both are really looking forward to hearing Tom today. So welcome to all guests.
Thank you. And Judy Schroeder, you have a few guests with us today. You're muted, Judy.
I think Ramsey Harik and Lori have joined us.
Oh, good.
That's great.
They're big fans of Tom, they tell me.
Good.
I'm big fans of them.
Great. Well, welcome to everyone. And I don't think we missed anyone, but if we did, you can speak up and we'll introduce you, but welcome to all.
Tom and Bernie Zoss are here, and we're
Oh,
glad
no
to have
kidding.
them.
Good.
All right, thank you.
They've got it.
And
I'm
Pat.
muted, but Tom and Bernie are here. Invited by Tim Jessen. I'm a former Rotarian, and I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you.
This is Anne speaking for a moment. Somebody mentioned Dr. Kinsey a minute ago.
No.
Mrs. Kinsey was my Girl Scout leader a long time ago, which was an absolutely A++ experience. Thank you. No.
Thank you. Welcome, Bernie and Tom, and welcome to everyone else that's joined us today. Okay, and thanks to our producers, Natalie Blaze, Michael Shermis, Sally Gaskell, and Aaron Davis for making everything run smoothly. And our roundabout reporter for this week is Alon Barker. We have a few birthdays. Kyla Cox Deckard on February 18th, Jim Cryway on February 18th, and Owen Johnson on February 22nd. And we don't have any membership anniversaries today, but we will have one this time next year. So Dave Meyer, would you please tell us about our newest member?
Thank you, President Ashley. This is the more funner, best fun thing that we Rotarians get to do at a meeting, which is a new member induction. And so I'm very proud to introduce and induct Jeffrey Bradley into the Bloomington Rotary.
Oh, wonderful.
So Jeff is originally from Louisville, Kentucky. He attended Indiana University from 1987 to 1994, where he earned both his bachelor's degree and his Juris Doctor. After graduating from Indiana University, Jeff began his legal career in Ohio as an assistant prosecuting attorney with the Clinton County Prosecutor's Office. From 2001 to 2003, he worked at the University of Kentucky as an assistant director for student rights and responsibilities with the Office of Resident Life. Jeff returned to Indiana in 2003 and received his law license in 2004 while working as a law clerk at Ferguson and Ferguson. In 2005, he joined the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office as a misdemeanor deputy prosecuting attorney. Jeff was promoted to the position of felony deputy prosecuting attorney in 2007. While in the prosecutor's office, Jeff also supervised the undergraduate interns and law clerks and taught criminal law at the Indiana University Police Academy. Last November, Jeff was elected to serve as a judge in Monroe County Circuit Court. While in Ohio, Jeff was active in a variety of community organizations. He served on the boards of the Rural Legal Aid Society, the Clinton County YMCA, and Hot Hoops. Jeff was an advisor for the Wilmington High School, Ohio mock trial team. He was a member of the President's Leadership Council at Wilmington College, Leadership Clinton, Bible Ministry Baptist Church, the Clinton County Bar Association, the Ohio Prosecuting Attorneys Association. Best of all, he was a member of Wilmington Rotary Club, where his participation included serving on the Banana Splits Festival Committee and the Roadside Cleanup Program. Jeff loves the Bloomington community. He currently serves as a board member for the Lotus Education and Arts Foundation and volunteers with the Lotus World Music and Arts Festival. Jeff is involved with his local school as a member of the Arlington Heights Elementary PTO and is a reader for Real Men Who Read mentor program. He's also a member of Elks Lodge number 446, Stone City Lodge 54, Second Baptist Church, the Monroe County Bar Association, the National Bar Association, the National College of Probate Judges, and the Honorable Order of the Kentucky Colonels.
Oh no.
That's finger licking good, that's for sure. Jeff has called Bloomington home for the past 17 years, along with his wife of 22 years, Megan Ray, their two children, Catherine and John Wiley, and their dog, Zoe. So Jeff, on behalf of the board and membership of the Bloomington Rotary Club, it is a great pleasure to welcome you as the newest member of our club. We look forward to the fellowship that you will share, as well as your participation in many club projects that make our community, country, and world a better place. Though Rotary is not a political organization, Rotarians are vitally concerned with good citizenship and election of strong leaders to public office. While Rotary is not a religious organization, it's built on those eternal principles that have served as a moral compass for people throughout the ages. Rotary is an organization of business and professional people pledged to uphold the highest ethical and moral standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and peace can be achieved when people unite with the Rotary motto of service above self. Rotary activities exemplify the charity and sacrifice of those one would expect from people who believe they have a responsibility to help others. Jeff, you've been chosen for membership in the Bloomington Rotary Club because your fellow members believe you to be a leader in our community and because you possess the qualities to champion the message and principles of Rotary. You are a representative of your vocation within the club and community. You now become an ambassador of the Bloomington Rotary, carrying the ideals of service to all within your sphere of influence. Our community will know and judge Rotary by your character and service. We will also look to you for inspiration as we strive to become better Rotarians. Jeff, I now ask that you pen yourself with the distinguished badge of a Rotarian, your Rotary pen. We ask that you wear your Rotary pen with pride, not only to all Rotary functions, but to in your many endeavors as a symbol of your commitment to Rotary ideals and our recognition of your contribution toward a better world.
No, that's all right. They can't hear me. It's Rotary Club, but
fellow Rotarians, please sit up straight in your chair.
Yeah.
Welcome our newest Rotarian, Jeff Bradley.
Bravo.
Bottom muted.
Welcome to the club, Jeff.
This is really good.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Natalie, can you unpin our screen for us?
All right, Jeff. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dave, for introducing us to our newest member. We're so glad to have you, Jeff, in the club and look forward to many years of service and fellowship with you. I did miss Carolyn Fries joining us today from the Bloomington Sunrise Rotary. Welcome, Carolyn. And we want to make sure that you're recognized. Okay, we have a few Rotarians in the news. To promote this year's Be More Awards, the Herald Times ran a photo of our own Sarah Laughlin with her 2020 award. So congrats, Sarah, for that recognition once again. And fellow Rotarian Hank Walter was quoted in a front page HT story about the renovations of the main dining area at the Memorial Union, making me very nostalgic for our times there, but we'll get back there once again. But nice shout out for Hank. I have a call for volunteers to help us think through what to do with tons of Rotary banners from all over the world and around the country. According to Kate Cruikshank, the IMU just unearthed a couple of cartons full while they were doing renovations, and those are added to another 3 cartons worth. All of them, or a lot of them, need some restoration work. So Kate, along with Sarah Laughlin, would like to brainstorm with some interested folks on 1, whether or not we should keep these, and if so, for what purpose, and 2, what steps we need to take to get from there to there. So as a group, the first project might be a trip to the teacher's warehouse, where our archive is stored, to get a sense of the scope of the project and what to do next. If you're interested, contact Kate at kcrook7@gmail.com. This will be in the roundabout, so you can get that email. But contact Kate and let her know if you'd like to help with that archiving project. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting history there. Okay, and there are many opportunities to volunteer at the Hoosier Hills Food Bank, Wheeler Mission, Helping Hands, and more. We'll be listing some opportunities and contact information in the roundabout. I won't go through all of those right now. Now we have a special announcement from Mike Baker.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bloomington Rotary Foundation, which is our club's foundation. It's a nonprofit organization. It's where we collect funds from activities like the Toast, which we then use to do community projects, the 80-20 fund, which is where members contribute $20 or more a month, or a quarter, and that money goes towards scholarships or other things that we might have need for cash for. The Bloomington Rotary Foundation, as I said, is listed as a tax deductible organization. So you write a check to the foundation, you can deduct it. Another way that people have found to provide a legacy of giving in our community is through planned giving, estate planning, a will. I didn't know how many of you knew that if you have a 401 account and you're retired, you can make contributions directly from your 401 account without any taxes, and it's fully deductible. Now, the reason I bring all this information up is in the previous years, we've always sponsored 4 scholarships for high school students at $1,500 apiece. We normally have all kinds of different fundraising opportunities, but because of COVID, it's been somewhat limited. Currently, we have 2 fully funded scholarships using money from the 80/20 fund and disbursements from the Community Foundation, which we get each year. And we have a partial additional one funded from people that have contributed in the name of Keith Klein towards the scholarships. So what we're wanting to do is next week, we're going to have a Hyper Happy Dollars in Keith Klein's name to try to raise some funding for these other 2 scholarships, which we want to award this year. We're going to fund all 4 scholarships, and we're taking some of the additional money out of our checking account, and we hope to raise money through Hyper Happy Dollars, or if you prefer to send in a check to the Bloomington Rotary Foundation, it will be 100% tax deductible. So we're going to try to do all of that in Keith Klein's name to fund these, to make sure we are able to fund all 4 scholarships. And long-term, whether it's through estate planning or community gifting or just contributions to the Bloomington Rotary Foundation, if you designate scholarships, we will definitely use that money in the future for scholarships. So thank you for those who've already contributed, and thank you for those who are considering giving some kind of a gift towards our scholarship drive this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. And to save up the hype for Hyper Happy Dollars next week, we're going to skip and get right next into our program. So Charlotte, please introduce our speaker today.
Oops, she's muted.
Charlotte, you're muted.
I know it, and I've lost you. Ashley.
Oh,
we can hear you now.
We've got
Okay.
you now, Charlotte.
All right, good. All right. Not you, Ashley. I have 2 Ashleys here, one at each end. Okay, good. Yeah, well, I'm very happy today to introduce our speaker, who I learned to know years ago, and who because of my years at Indiana State, he knows I learned a lot about Terre Haute, but I've all learned a lot more from this person, Tom Rosnowski, who did not come from Terre Haute. He came from upstate New York, and so he's feeling very much at home today with the snow. They do this up in Syracuse and Albany, where he comes from. So welcome to your old home conditions, Tom. So Tom Rosnowski has been in Bloomington for a number of years, and he got here like so many people did, accidentally, sort of wandered in. He's kind of a troubadour. He was playing music in upstate New York when he decided to go across the country, playing his guitar and singing. And he had a friend in Bloomington who he visited. And while he was here, he met Trish Bracken, who he fell in love with, as well as with Bloomington. And he never left. He's been here ever since. So we're really lucky. Tom, as you know, he's endlessly, I call him a troubadour. He calls himself a media content creator. A media content creator. Well, I don't like those terms. I'd rather think of him as a troubadour. He's been regaling us for years with his program Porchlight, which airs on Saturday evening, and he's going to regale us again, tell us more about what we don't know. So,
that's a pretty high bar, Charlotte.
Okay, I just said pretty much. I didn't say completely. Okay, good. So I'm really happy that you're here, Tom. Welcome.
I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, these are home conditions, but it only reminds me how out of practice I am. My limit, I think, is about 5 inches of snow, at least, to lift it in a shovel. I wanted to talk today about resources that have undergone a great change during this pandemic and the quarantine. I think it's brought a lot of us to an acknowledgement of what has meaning and value broadly and in our own personal lives. But I think that's where you start. I noticed that my buddy John Bailey is here today. John's the executive producer for Porchlight and the station manager, and Brad Kimmel, who we haven't had a chance to meet yet. Brad has just assumed his duties as director of WFIU and WTIU. And of course, that commitment in terms of the value of public broadcasting is at the core of what a lot of us do. And I think in your own lives, you've become aware perhaps how tenuous sometimes these institutions and these resources are.
Yep.
There are a number of businesses here that we have come to rely on personally who are not going to survive this pandemic. And it gives you an opportunity, I think, to understand what we miss because it's suddenly gone, and also what we appreciate because it's here, it's still here, and it has survived on the other side of this mountain we're climbing. I think with regard to my productions at WFIU and WTIU, the productions I've done there, my strength is the imaginative, and I think that has a very special place, certainly in both WTIU and WFIU over the years, the productions that they've produced. The element of imagination is really critical to part of what I want to address today, the legacy of Saturday evening radio on public radio, WFIU. And I know some of you are very invested in that. The fact that you can turn on the radio on Saturday evening and be transported in terms of story, in terms of music, in terms of just the atmosphere that's created to a different place, a restful place, a place that's pleasant, a refuge in a lot of ways. And I think this situation that we're in right now gives us a new interpretation of the idea of both values and refuge. How important it is to feel calm, to feel safe. And also, from the standpoint of values, being able to put our energy, as so many of you are committed to do through Rotary in your daily lives, toward supporting resources that have meaning and purpose for you. The legacy of Saturday night radio on WFIU and hundreds of public stations across the country really began in 1974 with Prairie Home Companion and its debut. A couple of years later, they were syndicated. And the first time I heard Prairie Home Companion was in a very magical space. I had a date to play in Brown County. And before then, it was a private party. And I was getting a ride over to the party and found myself in this rustic cabin in Brown County. And the owner of the cabin had Prairie Home Companion on the radio. And for a moment, those of you familiar with the magic of Saturday evenings on public radio know this. You turn it on and it creates an environment in your home so that you can be connected. You do the dishes, you maybe look over the newspaper, pet the dog, build a fire in the fireplace. And it brings you closer to the very meaning of home personally for you, and you interpret that in your own way. I think in terms of resources, that's something that has particular importance to a number of people. And there are common elements, I think, with a lot of the programming on Saturday evening that make it particular. One, of course, is music. If you look at most of the shows that certainly appear in the format at WFIU, almost all of them include music. And world music with Fiona Ritchie, Thistle and Shamrock, different genres of music. And then there's also the element of story. Mike Flynn, who preceded me at the 8 o'clock slot with Folk Sampler, great storyteller, as is Fiona Ritchie. And of course, Prairie Home Companion, which had both elements, music and story. And then all of these shows, very much like local children's shows from the when I was growing up, every local television station had a children's show that they would produce locally. And these children's shows had many of the same elements. It was a safe, comfortable place to be for kids. It emphasized discovery and curiosity. Story was a big part of it, very often reading a children's story aloud. And then that whole idea of the host and that individual who kind of guides you through this experience. Characters, they were ubiquitous in these children's shows that were locally produced that I grew up with. And there are two other elements I think that they share. That's one of the reasons I used children's shows as sort of a template when I was planning what to do on Porch Light for that hour. One is the personal. Those of you familiar with Porch Light know that from time to time, I have a visit with Bish, which is Dick Bishop was literally, and I'm accurate, I think here, on the air at WFIU for over 50 years. He started as a student and with 15 minutes on the radio playing some jazz. And this grew into the program Afterglow, which Mark Chilla has inherited and does a wonderful job with on Friday evenings. And then Standards by Starlight, which was Dick's last show. One of the great things about Dick Bishop, amazing, he just had the ability to create space, personal space, with the sound of his voice, the music that he chose. He was like a magnificent wine steward. Wherever you were, he could suggest a piece of music, a story to accompany it. It would make it just a little deeper, a little more restful. And I listened to him all the time. I admired it. It was like watching Willie Mays play baseball from a visiting dugout. I just watch him and it's amazing what he's able to do. And it was, there's a book I'm sure a lot of you have read, Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point. And one of the things that Gladwell points out in that book is it is the small details, paying attention to the small details, that really makes a difference in terms of presentation and meaningful connection. And I'll just share a little story here. John knows this, of course, having known Dick for many years. Dick Bishop took exquisite care of his records. They barely had a skip and he had owned them for decades. And he would use these records on air, which is rare these days. Most of us use digital content, CDs, stuff that we download and so forth. But there's a difference. And I was actually talking to Charlotte earlier today about, she has a turntable now. And as a lot of you know, vinyl and turntables are making a comeback. One of the reasons they're making a comeback is not just nostalgia, but there is a subtle, if noticeable, difference in the sound quality between an LP that was recorded, say, in 1962, jazz LP, and a digital recording, which is much more compressed. And just that subtle difference between the lows and the highs in the music. Remarkably, I think it was subtle, but it came through in Dick's program. So there's these details that make it more personal. And the second element I wanted to mention here is very much related to the personal, the mystical, the magical. And that's part of the legacy of Saturday Night Radio, that you're dealing with different cultures, different experiences with regard to music or story. And they do get into the realm of the magical, the mystical, the imaginative. And radio is such a wonderful medium for that. Recently, I was on the street. I don't get much opportunity to do this, and it's something I very much miss, and hopefully will occur more on the other side of this mountain we're climbing. But I ran into Dan Orr, who owns the farm, and he had his mom with him. And he introduced me to his mom, and he said, "This is Tom Rusnowski. You remember him? We listened to his program on Saturday evenings." She says, "Oh, yes." And she said, "You know, you don't look anything like you sound." And that's right. I get that all the time, because people who know me from the radio don't have any image of what I look like. And that's part of that imagination that spreads throughout radio. You are listening. That's what I grew up with. And your imagination is enhanced. Your senses sharpened by the fact that all you have is the audio, and you fill in everything else. So when Charlotte introduced me, Troubadour is wonderful, Charlotte. I really appreciate that. The title that I give myself is kind of a catch-all, media content producer, is a lot colder and regimented, but I use it pretty much as a demonstration of how much things are changing. And Brad, John, both aware of this very much in terms of their responsibilities with regard to the stations. Things are changing so quickly in terms of technology and how people are receiving this content. Try to buy a radio these days. It's not easy. They don't carry them. And most people's radios are, in many cases, they're smart speakers, or the only time that they listen to radio is when they're in the car. One of the things that is a challenge here, there are two challenges. One is the fact that so much of our media content, and again, I'm using a broad brush there to include recorded music, film, television, radio, books, magazines, is digital now. And it goes to that digital interface. So, and those of you who listen to WFIU are aware of this. We've been running promos probably for the last year that say, ask your smart speaker to play WFIU. And that's very, very important, because you could also ask your smart speaker to play NPR, and it would give you something. The content wouldn't be the same, because what's airing on WFAU at a certain place in time is particular. Now there's the convenience. If you just want the news, air NPR News. You say it to your smart speaker, Siri responds, there it is. But there's also, to my mind, something very personal, a personal connection that comes from something scheduled, which is where we began this discussion, around the legacy of Saturday evening radio. And that almost seems antique, doesn't it? When you say it, Saturday evening radio, because basically it presupposes that you have an affection for the radio as a medium, that with all the other competition in terms of how you could spend your leisure time on a Saturday evening, go to Netflix, you could pick up any number of magazines online or physically that you get behind on because you don't have the time. And one of the things that's happening right now that I think is very exciting, well, it's kind of hard to use the word exciting and quarantine in the same paragraph, but there you are. Because in some crises, there are opportunities. I'm sure a lot of you have read much more than you have because of the quarantine, because you have a little more space to respond to. How you fill that space is critical. For those of us who produce content, the first realization is there's so much competition out there. There is all the music, and I deal with this in Porchlight all the time. One of the reasons Porchlight is possible is because of the access that I have to music, rare music, that was created 70 years ago. And it's there in the digital world. You can access it. Access is very easy these days. But that means with all the media content that I mentioned, whether it's film, television, radio content, music, books, print, anything in print, this is all available instantly. So it is my privilege in terms of what I do to not only be part of a long-standing tradition. Currently, we are at 6 o'clock on Saturdays and Sundays, WFIU on Saturdays, WFIU 2 on Sundays, for 1 hour. I feel a great privilege in terms of being part of a very long tradition on Saturday evening radio, being invited into people's homes, sharing their sacred space. And it is sacred space. I think when we were talking earlier about meaning and value and how that redefines itself in these current times that we're facing, that the ability to put your attention, your resources, your idea of what has meaning and value, to realize it, to follow through on it. That's what you're doing here at Rotary. And when we ask for support during fund drives for WTIU and WFIU, that's basically what we're asking. Put your money where your heart is, if not your ears and your eyes. Realize what has meaning and value to you, and understand, this is the scary part, that a crisis may create a situation where what has meaning and value disappears. It also creates the opportunity for an appreciation of something that has meaning and value because it has survived. So one thing that has meaning and value, Jeff was just inducted today as a new member of Rotary. And it was a wonderful thing to witness. But I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to that point sometime this summer, perhaps, when you might see Jeff on the street, at a restaurant, and are able to actually see him. Not virtually, see him, shake his hand, say hello, mention that you were at that meeting in February. And one of the things that keeps me going, I think, in all of the efforts that I make is the sensory. And what I mean by that is meeting somebody's eyes genuinely when you were a few feet from them, hugging them, hearing the differences between an LP and a CD, that subtle difference that makes, maybe gets to the depth of your soul. It is the subtleties, the details, as Malcolm Gladwell said, that creates meaningful change in our consciousness of what has meaning, value to us, and also what excites our senses. So as I said, the ability to be part of that effort to share your precious leisure time, to be invited into your home on a Saturday evening and continue to be part of this long-standing tradition, that's very special tradition of Saturday evening radio on WFIU, is something I am privileged to be part of. It's sort of like realizing that you're going to be written in as center fielder for the New York Yankees. And you think about DiMaggio, and you think about Mantle, and you think, I'm putting on the same uniform. Let's see what I can do at the plate today. So I think we're getting pretty close to the end of our time together. I had talked, Michael, I think, had asked whether I wanted to sing a song or not. I have my guitar here, and I'll do one quick. Elaine is here. Be conscious there are some excellent musicians among us. Excellent writers, too. Great people. I have a lot of friends here today. That's a good thing. This song came from Wilderness Plots, which was a show that I did with some wonderful singer-songwriters, Carrie Newcomer, Tim Grimm, Krista DeTour, Michael White. And it was based on a book by Scott Russell Sanders about the settlement of the Ohio Valley and bringing us to an awareness of what that process was like that isn't in the textbooks. I can see them rising, standing one by one, like some green horizon, blocking out the sun. I step back with my axe as I hack at this trunk and imagine just what might be. Whenever I look at trees, I see cities. I got this one-room cabin. I got my hogs and dogs. Sure enough, they'll get me laughing, but they'll seldom talk. Oft times I'll stare at the timberline and just pine for some company. Whenever I look at trees, I see cities. circling above. And his call breaks the silence on this solitary island, surrounded by an ocean of trees. I can see them rising, standing one by one, like some green horizon, blocking out the sun. Let that sun shine through to a two-room schoolhouse built from the best of these. Whenever I look at trees, I see cities. Whenever I look at trees, I see cities. There we go.
Yeah. Love it, Tom.
Thank you all for listening. It was a delight to be with you. In a better world, we will be in one room together.
That's it from Lake Wobegon. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tom. We do have to close our presentation today, but do you have a few minutes to stay after to answer some questions?
Oh, sure. Any questions? I love answering questions that I actually have answers for. So,
okay, great. Well, in honor of your presentation today, we'll be making a donation to Beacon, our quarterly speaker recognition recipient. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
And Sally, will you tell us about next week's program?
Delighted. Next week, our own past president, Joy Harder, will be talking about folding death into our lives, a Rotarian's journey to become a death doula.
Yeah, good.
Hi, Joy.
Be here for that. That's going to be a wonderful program. I'm really looking
Hi,
forward.
Tom.
We go way back.
We go so way back. It's so wonderful to see you.
Will you tell everybody what our connection was initially at WTTS? That is a wonderful story.
Oh, Tom and I had the lovely occasion to work together. Tom was host of, was it Blue Sunday?
Yeah,
Tom?
Blue Sunday.
Blue Sunday. And I was a guest of the program. I was Ingrid, the Swedish Army nurse who would come and talk with Tom.
Yeah.
So it's true. It's true. The fun goes way back with me, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had, she was a character. As I said, I love developing characters for shows that I do. It's kind of my habit from being a kid and watching Captain Kangaroo. And Ingrid, the Swedish Army nurse, the one thing I remember doing is we had a contest that involved mail-ins, and the prize was a trip to Chicago to see a blues festival. And the night that we chose the winning entry, of course, we did that in advance, but we got something together. We produced something where Ingrid, and this was all on the radio, keep in mind, Ingrid dived into a swimming pool filled with all of the entries. And the toughest part about it, it was great. Joy played her part beautifully, had the accent down. Ingrid, the Swedish Army nurse. And the toughest part about it was collaborating with the sound engineer to see if we could get the sound of her hitting 1,000 entries in a pool from a high dive. And it was somewhere between a push and a splat, and it worked out great. I remember that. It was magnificent. Oh. The winners had a great time. They sent me a postcard, by the way. It was terrific.
Thank you for sharing that story. I love it. Okay, we're going to close our meeting by saying the four-way test together, and then we'll have some time for questions. Of the things we think, say, or do, first is the truth. Second is fair to all concerned. Third will build goodwill, better friendships. Fourth will be beneficial to all concerned. And fifth is it fun. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, our meeting